Good afternoon, thank you for having me. So I'm going to be talking to you today about an ongoing project that's aimed at dealing with excessive alcohol consumption within the student population, primarily in the nighttime environment. And I'm going to give you a brief overview of phase one. Phase two is currently ongoing, so I can't give you too much information about that just yet. So the Student Alcohol Research and Prevention Activity Project, or SARPA, is a collaborative project between Liverpool City Council, the University of Liverpool and Liverpool John Moores University. The project has been funded by Public Health Liverpool and aims to encourage students in Liverpool to drink less alcohol on nights out, but also to engage in events that don't have an alcohol focus. It's previously been shown that students and young people generally are often the target of promotions for alcohol-fueled events, and by nightlife venues in general, they tend to target the student population. Additionally, studies are showing that binge drinking is both common and socially acceptable within the student population, and that further demonstrates the need for an intervention on this public health issue. So research from the SARPA project adopted a mixed methods approach for the following aims to be considered. So we set out to explore and identify student-focused alcohol and non-alcoholic promotions and events, to identify if and how student binge drinking could be reduced through promoting low and non-alcoholic drinks and events, to develop and implement an intervention which was based on the research that we did during phase one, and then finally to evaluate the intervention which is currently in process. In order to accomplish these aims, the following research methods were conducted. So initially, we did a rapid literature review to see what was already out there. We then did venue observations of 20 venues within the city centre itself. We then did content analysis of 12 of those venues from their social media activity. Nightlife surveys with students were conducted, of which we managed to do 171 over a 3-week period. Student focus groups, which had a total of 32 participants from both universities, and we did 20 stakeholder interviews from the relevant organisations. Due to time constraints, I'll briefly discuss some of the findings from these methods and provide information on areas that were highlighted throughout the various research streams. So, at the beginning of the project, we undertook a rapid literature review which provided some interesting statistics. For example, the NUS student alcohol survey from 2016 found that of over 13,000 students, 76% of respondents say that they don't have to get drunk to have a good night out. Contrastingly, however, 48% also thought that by getting drunk, they would have a better night out. 30% said that they would take advantage of drinks offers such as happy hour. And those in the first year were reported to be more likely to drink frequently during the week, 2 to 3 days, compared to those in other years. Additionally, a study of 604 students in an area within the UK found that 59% of students had preloaded alcohol before visiting town city centres. So ultimately, and also there was evidence from the literature review that showed that social enhancement was the primary motivation for people drinking to large amounts in excess. Ultimately, however, as Simon mentioned earlier, the literature review for this kind of topic found that there just isn't an awful lot of information out there. There is a massive lack of evidence relating to alcohol-free events and their impact on reducing alcohol consumption in general. So it's the hope of the researchers for this project that the findings we do have and we report on will help to bridge that gap. So one of the first elements, so the student nightlife survey, findings indicated that the majority, nearly 90% of students who we surveyed had already drank alcohol that night. We did start the surveys from 7 p.m. So at that point, there were still people who had drunk. Almost 2/3, 64.5% of the sample were classified as a regular user of Liverpool's nightlife. By regular user, we mean that they go out into the Liverpool city centre at least once a week. As you can see, the median units of alcohol consumed prior to going out into the nightlife is higher than the units that they consumed during their night out, further demonstrating the prevalence of preloading within the student population. So they went from 6 units pre to 4 during, which is quite a big difference. Moving on to the student focus groups. So in the student focus groups, a number of themes were explored. However, certain topics repeatedly came up within the discussions. Participants discussed going out into Liverpool city centre on a regular basis, with students saying that they were more likely to go out during certain periods of the year, i.e. Freshers' Week. Students also stated that they felt that they were unlikely to drink non-alcoholic drinks on a night out in Liverpool city centre, often stating that cost or value, as they perceived it, were the main reasons. Additionally, in the Nightlife surveys, over a third, 35% of males, and a quarter, 26% of the female participants reported preloading. During the focus groups, participants repeatedly discussed their tendency to preload and not to enter the nighttime economy until much later on in the evening, 11, 12 o'clock, sometimes even post-midnight. Further results from the student survey, as well as information that we gained during the course of the focus groups, provided information about students' perceptions of the type of promotions and nightlife practices that they've encountered whilst out on a night out in Liverpool. Over 95% of those asked felt that promotions on alcohol are often specifically targeted towards the student population through student discounts, student nights, drinks vouchers, free shots, things like that. Additionally, only 6% felt that venues in Liverpool city centre offer promotions on non-alcoholic drinks, in comparison to 92.5% who actively say they see promotions for alcohol whilst they're out. So to expand on this pattern of alcohol promotion activity, almost 40% of survey respondents had purchased an alcoholic drink which was on promotion on the night they were surveyed. Focus group participants also detailed how they were more likely to go to specific venues if they knew there was promotions on in order to save money. Additionally, stakeholders then expressed their concerns over people purchasing multi-buy promotions such as 3 for 2s or pitchers, large quantities of alcohol, which are intended for sharing but actually consuming them all themselves, resulting in high levels of drunkenness. Several of the participants stated that they were unlikely to purchase a non-alcoholic drink on a night out because they didn't really perceive them to be value for money, although they did acknowledge that there was a tendency for non-alcoholic drinks to be cheaper than alcoholic ones. Furthermore, those who didn't drink or who occasionally drank alcohol discussed some frustration that the price points, there wasn't much difference. So you may be able to buy a pint of Coke for £2, but a cocktail may cost you £2.50. So this concept of value consistently came up. So to further examine how the cost of beverages can influence people's choices, during the venue observations that were carried out, the cost of 4 standard drinks was recorded and then analysed. Researchers established that the mean cost of a single vodka and Coke was around £3.70. This ranged from £2.50 to £5. Researchers asked at the bar for a house vodka and Coke, so the only reason we can think of for the big range is that each bar had its own brand of house vodka, which may have a different price point. It was observed that in 2 of the nightlife venues visited, a single vodka actually cost the same or more than a double. So that element that Rebecca was talking about of upselling was a consistent theme. Additionally, in all of the nightlife venues that were observed, soft drinks were placed in a less visible location to the alcoholic counterparts, often lower down in the bar, or less accessible to people who may feel that that's what they prefer to have. In response to this, students were asked what they believed would motivate them to drink more non-alcoholic drinks whilst on a night out. Saving money, being healthier, and avoiding a hangover were the most popular options overall. However, 40% of respondents felt that saving money was their primary motivator. Additionally, during the focus groups, the concept of drinks and activities being value for money came through as an important consideration for the participants. Students also discussed how, whilst they are aware that water is available by law, many of them wouldn't ask for it either due to embarrassment or because they just simply couldn't be bothered queuing up like the rest of the patrons. So there was a desire there for water to be accessible on the bar in a self-service way. These findings provided researchers with a better picture of the current motivations of students to go out and drink alcohol, and also to help understand what may influence them to make a choice for a non-alcoholic drink more frequently whilst out in Liverpool city centre. Also, it was important to recognise for the universities especially that with an increase in international students whose culture or religion may not include alcohol consumption, as well as a shown decline anyway in young people consuming alcohol, Gant and Terry's 2017 publications showed that over the past 20 years, the number of people drinking alcohol has actually dropped within the UK. It was seen that it was important for the universities and facilitators to have a greater understanding of the students' needs and their motivations for drinking and how they could influence this. So, going forward, as a result of the findings from the first phase of the SARPA project, the researchers got together, we produced an interim report with recommendations for all the stakeholders on how to further enhance the student experience whilst removing a focus on alcohol. Some of the recommendations can be seen above. So we offered things such as target preloading as well as drinking in the nightlife economy, because we've seen that that's a huge thing. Promotions on non-alcoholic drinks to be more prominent. Encourage healthy behaviours around alcohol. Don't say to people, don't drink, it's not safe, but to encourage their behaviours to be moderated, or to, as a group of people, think about how much are they consuming before they're hitting the point of entry into the nighttime economy, or at the point where they're going home. To adopt a multi-agency approach, although they are separate universities with very separate circumstances, there is 3 universities within the city, and by adopting a multi-agency approach across the board, it actually benefits everyone. And to encourage the promotion of alcohol non-focus events, that should say. So just think about what events are you promoting, where are you locating them, are you making sure that your student population who don't drink feel comfortable attending those events, or do they feel a certain pressure to have an alcoholic beverage while they're there? So the evaluation process is currently underway. All of the stakeholders have designed an action plan and implemented those actions as of September 2018. And we are expecting to be able to provide a report this spring, so in preparation for the upcoming academic year. So thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.